Your emotions are already controlling your life, whether you realize it or not. You think you're making rational decisions, but it's actually how you feel that drives almost everything in your life. From what you eat, to who you have sex with, to how you spend your time on a daily basis. Emotions are a fundamental component of what motivates and drives your behavior. So it stands to reason that becoming aware of your emotions is an extremely powerful skill to develop. But how exactly do we do that? If you've ever been hit by a wave of intense anger or grappled with grief or jealousy, you'll know that it's not that simple, right? So today, I'm going to be giving you some practical and grounded steps towards emotional mastery so you can take back control of your life as well as your evolution. If you're new here, my name is Jasper and welcome to my channel. Now, first up, I want to properly explain why mastering our emotions is not as simple as it sounds. Because we live in a society that has trained us to suppress what we feel. From an early age, we're taught to be good boys or good girls, and we're conditioned to suppress what's really happening inside of us. Especially for men, emotions are seen as weakness, as instability, as something to hide or to override. And so we end up blocking ourselves, and we end up creating masks to keep the truth of what we feel bottled up inside of us and hidden from the outside. Unfortunately, this conditioning is outdated. We're actually entering a new era where emotional depth is becoming essential and not just optional. With the coming age of AI and robotics, it's our humanness that is our true superpower. But without emotional mastery, you're going to continue to unconsciously sabotage your potential, your relationships, your leadership, as well as your decision making. Now, I want to be transparent here and own that I learned this lesson the hard way. Most of my life, I was taught to suppress my emotions, and I didn't know it at the time, but I had an avoidant attachment style because my family never really talked about feelings, and it took me nearly 30 years to realize that it was this conditioning that made it so hard for me to connect to the women that I was in relationships with. And in fact, it was my emotional unavailability and my immaturity that created the dysfunctional relationships that I had in my life. I used to think that emotional control meant not feeling. And it took the woman that I loved breaking up with me and walking away for me to finally wake up and understand what I was missing and why it was important. Eventually, I realized that the power move was actually learning to be with what I was feeling without collapsing into it or running away from it. So now I want to share with you what I call my emotional awakening. And these are the 4 biggest insights that changed my life. And I want to give them to you so you can use them to guide your own development. So insight number 1 is that repression is not control. It's actually fear in disguise. So emotions don't disappear when we ignore them. They actually just end up leaking out in other ways. So for example, if you suppress your anger, it becomes passive aggression, or it builds up inside of you as resentment, and you end up hating the people that you're supposed to be loving. So suppression equals emotional immaturity, and mastery equals feeling consciously. Insight number 2 is that mastery is found through emotion, not by running away from it or suppressing it. The only way is through. So emotions are messengers. They're not your enemy. They actually point you towards your unmet needs, your unconscious stories, and the deeper truths of your being. Insight number 3 is to expand your range instead of narrowing it down. Real strength includes the feminine. The more emotion that you learn to hold, the more capacity that you have, the more power that you have to lead, to love, and to create. So your emotions are a part of the map of your life. And if you learn to listen to them, they become a compass that actually guides you towards making a much more complete, much more rich and rewarding life. And insight number 4 is that your ability to feel is directly linked to your ability to connect with others and with yourself. So avoiding feelings equals avoiding intimacy. Emotional fluency, on the other hand, is actually a requirement for depth in relationships and for finding your life purpose and for developing the capacity for authentic leadership. When I understood these insights, my entire relationship towards myself, as well as towards other people, completely changed in profound and amazing ways. And I started to actually feel much more free within myself to be myself. And that's because emotional intelligence is actually a component of relational intelligence. And because humans are relational creatures, we exist as a part of a collective, we benefit enormously from developing these kind of qualities and skills because it actually benefits our survival. So now I want to help you actually bring this down to earth by giving you a step-by-step guide to mastering your emotions. Here is a simple, repeatable process that you can start using today to build emotional mastery. Now, this isn't about suppression, it's actually about literacy, listening and learning and developing the capacity to sit with your emotions long enough to understand what they're actually trying to tell you. So step number 1 is to build emotional literacy. Start naming what you're feeling accurately. Most people just say, I'm stressed. But what are you actually feeling? Is it anxiety? Is it guilt? Is it sadness, disappointment? The tip here that changed my life is to use what's called an emotional wheel or an emotional chart to help you actually see what it is that you're feeling on a bit of paper or on the screen so you can actually externalize that and actually get a bit of perspective. This helps you to develop a much more nuanced vocabulary that points towards your inner experience. Step number 2 is to ask deeper questions. Every emotion is a messenger pointing towards a need that exists inside of you. So you've got to ask yourself, what is this emotion telling me that I need right now? For example, anger is often a signal that your boundaries have been violated. Sadness is often asking for connection or for you to rest and reflect and deeply understand what's happening or missing in your life. Anxiety might be pointing you towards a need for clarity or security. The main takeaway here is to identify the unmet need underneath whatever it is that you're feeling. Step number 3 is to validate the emotion without collapsing into it. You can say to yourself, it makes sense that I feel this way given what happened to me. Validation is not some form of indulgence. It's actually just acknowledging the reality of what's happening without being ruled by it. Let that emotion move through you without suppressing or dramatizing it. And step number 4 is to build capacity to sit with it. The more you practice feeling without numbing, without fixing or running away, the more capacity we start to build to handle emotions. Over time, the emotion no longer controls you. You learn to hold it, and that's where the real power lies. Step number 5 is to take aligned action if it's needed. Once you've understood the emotion, once you've understood the need and validated it, now you can ask yourself, is there something I need to do in order to honor this feeling? This could be setting a boundary, asking for support, or simply breathing and moving forward with more awareness. If you repeat this cycle consistently, feel, name, understand, validate, and respond, your emotional world becomes a source of power instead of confusion. Your leadership skills sharpen, your relationships deepen, and you stop reacting and start responding with the truth. And lastly here, I want to offer you a meta perspective and some spiritual insights to ground what I've just shared here into the bigger picture. So far, humanity has been climbing the ladder of human evolution through rational thinking, through force, through logic and control, all of the masculine qualities. That's why we typically measure intelligence with IQ instead of EQ. But higher stages require more complexity and more integration. And integration means feeling everything that we've denied about ourselves. And for most of human history, the feminine has been very suppressed because the world simply wasn't safe enough in order to be truly vulnerable or sensitive or open emotionally. But now, Humanity needs to start healing from the trauma of the past because we've seen where conflict and division leads us, and it's not good. We actually need the feminine qualities to offer us a deeper insight into why we behave the way we behave and how to move towards higher stages of consciousness as a species. So emotional mastery and integration are actually a key part of our spiritual development and our awakening on both an individual as well as a collective level. So if you want to evolve emotionally, spiritually, developmentally, you need to learn how to turn towards what's real inside of you and embrace it instead of building walls that prevent that energy from moving through you and delivering the message that they bring. And the coolest part about this is that your personal healing and your emotional development actually ripples out into the collective and contributes to the way that we as a species relate to ourselves as well as each other. So that's it for this episode. If what I've just shared here spoke to something deep inside of you, you can stay on this path with me, hit subscribe and follow along with my channel. You could share this episode with someone who's struggling emotionally, or just drop a comment about what you're personally learning when it comes to mastering your emotional world. And lastly, remember, we are not here to bypass the truth. We're here to wake up and discover what's true. So take a moment right now to slow down, have a few breaths, and just contemplate this topic. Contemplate what I've shared here and think about what it means for you and your life. And when you're ready for another step in this direction, I'll be right here.